Futures relatively flat to get going here this morning as we continue to weigh signs of cracks under the hood for SaaS companies. Software downside in a big way yesterday, continuing that way it looks like this morning. We'll talk about that coming up. AMD, the big one after the close last night. We get AMD earnings themselves, actually not that bad. The stock itself shrugging off the numbers and heading southbound as well. Overall a beat, but not big enough. So we'll touch on AMD coming up. We'll also get Google after the close tonight. More on the tech side of things as well. SMCI reported maybe, kind of, didn't come out last night. We're still kind of searching for why that happened. It was definitely delayed, but overall the stock is higher this morning. We'll touch on SMCI here as well. Nvidia. More headlines on this tie-up with OpenAI, kind of back and forth that's been going. It continues to be, I mean, the leading story as far as the chips are concerned, but it continues to be really interesting as far as no one's really saying, but I mean, it's going to get to a point where they kind of have to. I
like how the girls are fighting here, you know? It's like, you know, he leaks something into the media and leaked by the other side. Come on, get it together. But that's kind of the situation at the moment. Good morning, guys. There is a whole lot to talk about today. First, talked about Nvidia there, AMD with not so great of a guide. Lilly absolutely destroying earnings this morning, up almost 10%. Uber, a bit of a different look, down 5%. Enphase up 22%. But there is, of course, that I think it's like a Secretary of State-led meeting by Marco Rubio with respect to critical minerals, kind of building on that Project Vault we got yesterday. So more on that today.
Coming on the back of what happened yesterday with it, funding coming through from the Trump administration for more in that sector. Raheem coming up this morning. Raheem, gold, because that move continuing as well, back to the upside. I mean, a little bit of a bounce. We're just going to touch on with Raheem specifically where he's after the big move down, if there are, you know, individual names that are holding up a little bit better than others on the small cap side of things. So Raheem coming up.
Getting a nice bounce in the metals today. Gold up almost 2%, silver 5 2/3. But I want to build on your SaaS point that you started out the show with, Breno. A lot is being Anthropic's new options as well. I don't know if you got to hear about this. They've changed the name a couple of times because they got a cease and desist letter from Claude. They changed what the hell it's called now. It's Claw something or another. But it's kind of putting in focus what we've been talking about and why CRM has been part of the almost a year is that we're looking at these SaaS companies being really disrupted by internal models, right? And that you can run locally. Lisa Su's presentation yesterday, she had this little kind of, you know, it'll look like a Mac Mini, but it had AMD on it, and she called it beautiful. I didn't think it was that beautiful. Was you could run a 200 billion parameter LLM on there, which could do almost anything you want. And now we're seeing the software through Anthropic. So disruption central here for SaaS, Brenda.
Really interesting. And it's local too, which is the key. And I think, exactly. But from what I've read and what I understand at this point, I haven't had time to really dig into it yet, but you install it on your local laptop or desktop PC. Right. It essentially learns what you do and then just starts doing it for you.
Exactly.
So is available.
And there's like, remember how chat came out originally and you could get these add-ons to chat that could kind of do that? So that's what you have to download
like
these.
They have 8, which is similar, but I've never, it's okay. It's not amazing. It takes forever to do very similar. Here I am complaining about something like software. This sounds like, anyways, it's more substantial.
Exactly. And the issue is there's a lot of security concerns with it right now because of compromised by another LLM or somebody else putting a prompt within it and sort of giving them access to your information. But the point here is once we kind of get the proof of concept, we can look at the security issues later and tighten those up.
And I think that's going to be interesting because the hesitation, it seems like people are to give it a lot of information on the initial setup. So people aren't really comfortable with that. Here's another one that's getting hit on this. downside in a big way. That's a weekly chart off a cliff here for NOW. But you mentioned Uber.
Sure.
Not a great report for Uber. They also have a new CFO who apparently I was reading this morning is very, very keen and speaks very highly of autonomous driving, which is, you know, a directional move, obviously, for that company, which relies heavily on human drivers. So we'll see with Uber.
Their biggest cost, Brendo.
Yeah, by far. Lots to discuss, guys. Google tonight as well. Good morning.
Good morning. And yeah, Google Alphabet tonight, that's going to be a big one. But next time Novo Nordisk sends Eli Lilly to the downside for reasons that are not. And that's what happened yesterday. Lilly comes on.
Can we just try to?
Lilly comes on.
Can we just try to get everybody just to refresh, maybe?
Is this still an issue?
Because the chat is just saying that it's laggy and skippy and all that. Yeah. So just.
I know we had an issue with Sharif's mic. I don't know if it's still with ours as well. So as we're talking, let us know if it's resolved.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So it looks like we're good now. So no worries. We'll just jump right on ahead. And it was worth the wait if you stuck around. Well, obviously we were done, but SMCI actually doing pretty well here with beats and strong guide, giving a little bit back, but almost double digits for them. So we live in a little bizarre world today where, you know, SMCI's up 8 and AMD's down 9. And that's just how it is. Not how the stocks have been doing previously, but this is the type of market it's been in earnings season. You're going to get some curveballs. Some of them haven't been curveballs, and I'm going to be looking at some day 2 plays as well. PayPal day 2 after a pretty historic drop to the downside. We've already talked about Uber on a day 1 play. And let's not forget that Bitcoin still underneath 78K. We're chilling at 76. You got a bit of a bounce. And you could say V-shape. It's fair to say yesterday in the afternoon you got a bit of a V-shape recovery.
It's like it's not.
But we're right back into the downside. So crypto and Bitcoin in particular are going to be front of the mind once again. A lot to watch. It's going to be a busy day. And it was fun, the aftermarket show. Certainly, maybe not so much for AMD, but Enphase. I don't know if anybody had 20% on their bingo card for that one.
I wonder what was expected because it was a pretty wild, that stock's been wild. And I mean, we saw the way that, hello?
Ew.
Oh my gosh. Hey Randy, how's it going? Thanks, man. Oh, I always appreciate it. All right, salute. Thing is, like I fill up a coffee in here and then I just kind of like, I haven't really even drank.
Then you have it for later.
That's what I'm saying. It's like now I just close the lid there and see if we, all right, Eli Lilly right now up. Thankfully, when I heard that Novo Nordisk sort of story and saw what was happening over there in the last couple of days of Novo Nordisk and, you know, the GLP oral drugs has been Viking Therapy. There's a bunch of different Pfizer bought that company trying to work on that. But it's nice to see that Eli Lilly, other than, you know, the GLP-1, they have other, you know, other in the pipeline. That's the word I'm looking for. So, oh yeah, by the way, Joe, Maple Leafs won again. But, you know, I like Hater Joe better than like, now we got 3 in a row heading into the Olympic break. So we'll see what winds up happening. But yeah, Maple Leafs got to do something. But anyways, yeah, nice to see Eli Lilly. Just a software economy right now. The software economy that's getting hit, as Brendan said. I think AI is having like the opposite effect of what everyone sort of thought, and that is it was going to be real efficient for a lot of companies, right? But the ones that are getting the sort of the tailwinds here, the Caterpillars, these industrials of the world, some of these we talked. You know how it's affected some of these biotech companies as well in that way. And what's happening at the other side of it is that all of a sudden you may not need that software stack, right? And so maybe companies that relied. Well, we saw what Salesforce did yesterday. What was it IGV? Is that what it is there? Yeah, the I shares here. It is tech sector ETF. Yesterday had its worst day since tariff tantrum day, and that was down 6%. And that's following multiple down days, you know, and you're getting right back in here into, see, there's that one day they're on the tariff, and obviously we have battled back. But, you know, a lot of these companies now realizing that, hey, like Brendan said, you just install this bot onto your program, onto your laptop, onto your PC, maybe even onto your phone. And next thing you know, it can start to replicate some of those tedious tasks that potentially you have. And that's, you know, I should have it download on my software over here and see if it can get some trades for me now that I'm thinking about this. But we saw a name, another software name like a Palantir get hit yesterday despite having great earnings. This is going to be, to me, this is a different beast. This is not something that you could just replicate, the way Palantir operates with their Foundry and AIP software and things like that. So I think this name maybe got beat up a little bit more than it should have yesterday, despite, the downside moves in, like we just said, names like a CRM. ServiceNow has been hit as well, like Atlassian. I mean, look at this, Neil. I mean, I'm still in CRM. This is just like hoping that eventually one day they get this right. I mean, they renamed their their AI agent force there, but it's the agents that are taking this thing down. I feel like it's apparently easy, not easy, but there's something about building your own sort of agent force. And we worry about ServiceNow, we worry about the Trade Desk, we worry about CRM, like so many of these names. ServiceNow was like a high flying, that must have been split there. Definitely a high flyer. You know what? Why didn't, okay, they must have split 3 for 1. Yeah, so here's a chart here on eSignal for ServiceNow, just, how bad that's gone. Now that's down to 109. Like you're talking about a stock that was 190, back in November, down to 110 today and making brand new lows, split 5 to 1 right there, yeah. So all-time high, not all-time high, sorry, 52-week high just back in July, 211, chop in half right now, 7 months later. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a downside plunge here for some of these names. And it's not like the beneficiary has been today. Chip names, I mean, AMD's downside as well. Nvidia's breaking lower.
You said there's strength elsewhere.
This is a roller coaster,
right?
Here.
Like we had some of the more staple type names. Well, getting away from things like Caterpillar, which have been Walmart, which has been looking fantastic. You've got Procter and Pepsi, which look much better now. You've got energy names. CVX is breaking fresh highs as we speak, and they've had a fantastic run the last couple of weeks. Throw in XOM as well. Each of them since their reports. If you bought that heavy dip that we had,
some XLE.
$15, like we're right back into some highs, and even consolidating up here. So there's kernels of strength out there in the market. The Dow is actually doing very well because there's a bunch of Dow names clearly that are having a good time of it. So you just have to maybe look a little elsewhere. But to the point of, I was gonna, oh shoot, I still have the C3AI chart. Ouch. On my monthly. I was gonna pull up CRM on a monthly chart and realize I still had.
What does that look? Oh my gosh.
So this is actually.
What is that?
This is completely random, and I meant to talk about CRM, but this is a monumental collapse. And it could get worse because on the monthly, underneath $10, there's nothing. Like these are all-time lows for C3AI. I got this. It was we actually had a couple of viewers that were like, make sure you watch C3AI breaking fresh lows. If you guys are looking at things like PayPal, like this could be in a huge breakdown territory. Anyways, before we go back up and move on with things, CRM on the monthly chart was the one I wanted to look at. This had some solid support and structure on the monthly at that 50-period moving average, and we lost that to end last month. Like this breakdown, ending the month, like that's a bearish push, and we're just already starting to get continuation. It doesn't seem crazy to me that 140 is the spot for this. Like look at on the monthly, look at all of the support in front of $140, and you got the 200 period down there. Things could get worse. If you don't think so, then it's just technicals that we're watching here, and they aren't very good for CRM. But man, that C3AI.
Yeah, that's bad.
That could break 10. Well, where is it right now? Before I say it could break $10, I haven't looked at it.
I can't believe it's even at $10. Where you just I can't believe you're even saying that.
It's at 1065, so it's probably not breaking $10 even today. Because like a lot of things, it bounced yesterday, but it came close. See, $10 breakdown on C3AI this week, maybe.
You know what doesn't care about C3AI? GLD.
Well,
and we are very, very happy to announce that come Monday, today's Wednesday, a few more sleeps, we will have the one and only, the biggest gold bug around, potentially.
Yeah.
Well, Peter Schiff coming on.
The legend himself.
Yeah, with at noon on Wednesday. So I was saying to Sharif, like it's victory lap time. I think he's could have taken them for a while. Now he came on our show 4 or 5 times, I guess, guys in the back. Maybe he had sort of talked about, the value of gold and what, its place in your portfolio. and he's going to be coming back and yeah, explaining where he thinks it's going to be going, and the value of holding this kind of an asset in your portfolio. So we're really proud to announce that in just now we're going to have Peter Schiff live here, I guess via Zoom, I guess. And he's going to talk all about gold. So I think that's be really just debating holding that, putting on a bigger position, selling your position, whatever you're thinking about. This is this place to be. Noon on Monday. Go mark it down. Go tell Siri to put it in there. Tell Google to make your calendar date there. Put Anthropic on your system. Let it put a calendar update right into your calendar. Whatever you here with us live. Monday at 12 p.m. That should be.
And hopefully he'll talk about some of the other bull markets. This is the third big bull market since for gold. Each of those, I'm only looking at the daily chart. Each of those three bull markets, any significant pullback has either taken. There's been about 6 of them. They're like 30. It's like 30 days, about 60 days, or 100 days to get back to highs when it goes into bear territory on one of these bull markets. This is the third one we've been in. So it could, if that follows suit, again, that's just historical. If that follows suit, in theory, you've got some time before we actually get back to the highs, if we follow suit historically. But either way, this is exactly the time to be looking. Well, the volatility is here from a trading aspect, and then of course everyone has questions about, well, can you actually buy up here when something is gone this parabolic? Money printing hasn't stopped, everybody. And I know, Sharif, I know you believe in that as well. Your thoughts on buying this dip in gold?
You and I were talking about this off camera, Neil. We were talking about, you were giving me the data about, how in the last, I think the last couple of decades, there's been 3 critical and there's usually a pullback of sorts. I don't know the duration, you were telling me a couple of weeks, couple of months, but this has been my bias the entire time. Trend longer than equities, and if that's the case, we're possibly getting a buying opportunity here. And quite frankly, I don't really see a calming escape so long as the current administration is in power. They've made it very clear they're here to disrupt, they're here to change the norm, and that usually comes with some risk. And when there's safety through the metals, Brendo, that's kind of my view on things.
Yeah, I mean, the move continues to be back higher here after this recent pullback. People are going to be testing the water continuously just to see if we can't get some type of continuation move. Just real quick, we got this ADP number there at 815, employment change. 22,000 forecast was 35,000, prior 37. So a little bit downside there for the weekly number. ADP employment change coming up a little bit later, 9:45, S&P Global Composite PMI. That's a final print for January. And then the ISM version as well. But I mean, I think a lot of people are waiting for a better look at this employment data. I mean, will we, won't we, remains to be seen on this government shutdown.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're really expecting any rate cuts, Brendo, as like it's kind of priced in, but we've been talking a lot about this low higher, low fire sort of an equilibrium. So then it'll come down to price stability, and that side of the equation we haven't seen anything bad from. Like sure, it's still above the 2% rate by the Fed, but nothing like we've seen or the expectations after the tariff tantrum as to what we could be experiencing. So I think like it's just in that equilibrium at the moment.
Guys, just a heads up, please just bear with us. We are working in the background on these issues. From our side, it appears so it might be on YouTube's end. We're still digging into it, but just bear with us. Please be patient. Microsoft, another one of these names. I was just having a look at a higher time frame here. This is a weekly chart from Microsoft. This thing's at a 25% drawdown off all-time highs. It's very rare that we get to say that about something like a Microsoft type of stock. So on a weekly time frame, definitely not looking good here. Another one of these software-related names.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. So obviously they have a lot of focus on cloud, and that's been a great driver for them. But we saw, the lofty expectations that the street over 40% year-over-year growth on the quarter. They missed that. It was high 30s. Today they're in the focus, looking to shake up their sales leadership and reprioritize AI spending. They're down 15% year to date, lagging behind all the Mag 7, and they're really putting a whole bunch of new people in here. Key executive appointments. You're going to get a new executive vice president and chief revenue officer. A longtime Microsoft veteran becomes executive vice president of worldwide sales and solutions. And this is something we've seen from Microsoft lately. Breno, they're saying, look, I think they actually cut the expectations for their sales team, which kind of, caused it to sell off, because if you're cutting expectations, that usually means a lower revenue number. And a lower revenue number obviously is going to get reflected in the price. Today, we're kind of seeing a shakeup with high-level management when it respects to sales. Yeah,
a massive company, obviously, with many, many different revenue streams. But, the major one, or one major one, is definitely on the software side. The cloud may or may not be affected as immediately anyways. We'll see what happens with AI going forward. But one to keep an eye on. And
I also want to say, with kind of the rethinking that we've been talking about with ChatGPT, and whether, it's the dominant LLM and leading the race as it was for a couple of years, that's also going to get reflected in upside potential, like over $1 trillion valuation for the IPO, which is coming later this year. Maybe, dampened expectations are reflecting in Microsoft's price because, well, I think they still own a large portion of $1 billion, give or take.
But to your point, as more and more other options come available that are better and better and better over time, is that still? Yeah, clearly it's a question mark. Let's go over to Joe with some options ideas.
Speaking of, all right, guys, let's get right into things. A lot going on in the world. Yes, it's Walmart hitting the $1 trillion club yesterday, guys. We're going to take a look at that $125 mark expiring on the 20th of February. Open interest sitting around 9,180 and volume around 2,810. Now, as for the bid and the ask, guys, relatively wide. And then this is a deeply in the money contract now. Okay, we're a little bit north of that. We're going to go over the chart here momentarily, but you can see your gamma exposure. So you have a 63 delta there in your gamma exposure. Not really increased, but you can see, considering we're extremely in the money, so gamma is greatest at the money. So at the money IV sitting around 35.2%. But what we're going to do right now is pull up the contract value. So as of last Friday, guys, you're getting a substantial return, 749%. It was in around the lows of approximately 67 cents. Now those contracts at its peak yesterday were just a little bit under $6 on Walmart. So a nice move there, and maybe a little bit of a rotation heading into the staples. Now as for PayPal, guys, not doing so well, but also getting an upgrade. We'll go over that momentarily. Open interest at that specific zone, $50 mark is going to be that area. Open interest around 22,000 there, and then volume 14,800. This is going to be expiring this Friday. Relatively expensive contracts considering these are deep in the money as well. But one thing that really stood out to me is the lack of delta exposure, considering it's a contract that's $50 and we're trading around $42, $41 right now. So a $50 spread, relatively wide there, guys. Gamma exposure 0.058, and then with the earnings report, you're going to see an increase in implied volatility. But let's get right into some of these analyst actions as well this morning too, guys. We're going to be taking a look at Airbnb. They're getting the upgrade, guys, by Citigroup. You're up about 0.7% there, going from neutral to outperform. And then we also have Enphase as well. You heard the boys talking about it this morning. You're up 22% there this morning. Royal Bank of Canada giving them the nod, but going from a sector perform to an outperform, also price target to $54. Now Cloudflare, ticker NET, you're positive here this morning as well too, guys, going from a neutral to a buy and a price target of around $199. And surprisingly so, even though we were just looking at the put contract here on PayPal, it's still on the upgrade side, going from a sell to a neutral by Compass Point. You're up a little bit more than 1% here today, guys. Now moving forward, let's take a look at some of the downgrades. trades, MicroStrategy getting a price target lowered from $474 all the way down to $185. Now, Chipotle Mexican Grill by Telsey Advisory, guys, you're down 6.8% here this morning, going from a $50 target to a $48 target. And then Super Micro positive as well, too, guys. AMD down, SMCI up. Needham giving that one the downgrade here this morning, lowering its price target from $51 to $40. And then we have Oracle, Adaro, I like this one, by BMO Capital. You're down slightly here, a little bit more than 0.6%, $270 to $205 there, guys.
Yeah, a couple of weird ones in there. The upgrade on PayPal.
Just some big moves on all those.
I know, but then the downgrade on SMCI after they just beat and were up 8%. So in opposite directions there. But just jumping back to PayPal for a quick little second. Yesterday, obviously the plunge on earnings was bigger than what it did at the open. Because if you look at, and obviously when you're down that big, and we can look at the higher time frame too, right? Just to remind everybody. And why not? We should always start from the outside in. PayPal got to levels they hadn't seen since 2027. We're literally talking about the IPO month highs. Like its initial IPO highs on the first month are what got breached yesterday just underneath the $43 level. And we're still under it. So as far as that, I'm looking continuation today for PayPal. Upgrade or downgrade doesn't really matter. It did do a pretty good bounce off the open. Like it took out the low and then rallied about $1.50. And it's that area, which is 43.5, and then down here at 42.7. Those are two spots I want to look for continuation. Just where you had these humps, like first support to resistance, and then the initial opening pop that got you to about $43.5. So yeah, I mean, maybe there's an upgrade on PayPal, but I'm more thinking about the continuation short. And you got to be careful because this will be SSR again today after being down like 20% in yesterday's trade. Quite a few short sell restriction or uptick rules going into effect in this earnings season. And this is just yet another example of it. But hey, somebody likes them. That's why they got an upgrade. It's just not me.
We have a nice little look here on Uber. I don't know what's going on with it. Thank you to Lois there in the chat. This just turned green. So Uber had a horrible, horrible report. Guided lower, missed, everything. I think the key is that you really have to like miss and have a horrible quarter to have some sort of reaction here. But yeah, I don't know. Nice move there for Uber. I just want to bring it to everyone's attention. I was surprised that there was really no upgrades or downgrade action on Uber right there, but their report just hit. So maybe tomorrow, maybe we will hear something about Uber. But right now, Uber flat on the day. What's up, Brenda?
And guys, JP Morgan reiterating their overweight following the earnings, saying pullbacks are overdone. Share price reaction overdone. Uber shares traded down more than 4.5%. But yeah, as you said, just going green. So JP Morgan coming out in support, regardless of these earnings.
Remember yesterday when JP Morgan came out for support with SoFi?
Well, that worked out really well.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I'm going to buy SoFi now. It's like JP Morgan, they upgraded Affirm, and they upgraded SoFi yesterday. So
I didn't see how Affirm did.
I'll up now because I probably just picked the wrong one. Yeah, good. Yeah, here's the upgrade right here. Good upgrade right there. And then it basically, forget about it. I'm going to say it didn't go out on its lows, of course, but if you look, 15 minutes before the close, you were down. But yeah, I think thanks, Brendan, for bringing that news, obviously, to us, because that's why Uber is going. But this is what happened to SoFi yesterday before eventually catching a bid. But remember, the whole market kind of cranked, right? So I'm not going to take one day of an upgrade or downgrade as being gospel there. But, I like JP Morgan, obviously, as a bank. And we talked about yesterday the way the banks and some of these other stocks started to move. I mean, we were panicking, and you look at your portfolio and you're like, all right, I'm in all software names, I'm in all tech names, and it was a disaster. But, we had many, many good stories coming through yesterday in the market, and not one of them, and one of them would be the banks, and, all the way back up to the 50-period moving average. So again, like this 200 period on good stocks, continue to be something. That reminds me, did IBM go up or down yesterday? Because, okay, still 290. Because this is a name that I thought was, and I just said like good companies coming down to the 200 period moving average. This is another one that I feel like, and I don't want to be too much into tech, but this is still actually holding up quite well here. IBM, and they have that little small dividend associated with anything 2.5% or so. If that can come back in, which it almost did, into this 280, I think that's a decent spot as well. So there are little shoots, green shoots here in the market, and Uber's trying to give us one of those right now, trying to bounce back off of some of those lows. So, and then let alone, I know we're going to have Raheem coming through, but the metals, we had CRML and some other names moving around yesterday. I don't know, SMR had some moves. Bitcoin got to 73.
And well, at least it's bouncing a bit. You were mentioning the 200 period moving average. Probably won't get mentioned today. Digital Turbine's up 18%. Hey, I mean, it's not the greatest, not the biggest thing in the world. That being said, the accumulation off the 200 period moving average and the 50, because like these have actually collided together in the last couple of days to bounce off the 5. Only issue with apps today would be volume. It's only done a couple 100,000 shares in the pre-market, but just purely technically, the bounce off both major moving averages, the breakout over about $5.50. It's for now. It's consolidating where you'd want to see it, but this is a wait and see till 9:30 type of play because the volume's so low. Like Uber's in play today because of the volume. PayPal, you could tell that, but with some of these smaller ones, you really want to see volume start to come into it in the morning. And I think if it does, as long as it's above 550, it's got a chance. If it doesn't hold VWAP, you're talking 10%, so you got to be very patient with it. But we start holding VWAP on apps. This is a potential breakup play. I know it's already up 18%, but you got to consider this will move 10% no problem. Right? Even like the dip into 550 would be pretty nonchalant, and even a break through 6 could see 650 as well. So lots to watch, lots to consider. I know we're going to talk with Raheem in just a little bit, and I know he's probably looking at gold. We mentioned Bitcoin not looking well, but silver, on the other hand, or gold and silver in particular, is above that 80 mark. SLV is above that 80 mark, I should say, not spot silver. And that was big time resistance in yesterday's trade. It was this trend break was, kind of like the one trade for myself, taking ZSL long actually, when this broke the trend. If we get another uptrend, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Wait for that trend to break, and when it does, it's just sometimes you like going long stuff, and actually like this because this was what we took in ZSL. You were trending down all morning, and then right in the middle of the day, there was your breakout on VWAP. So I'm looking for the same kind of thing in silver. Just wait for it to set up a long-term, not a long-term trend. I mean, on a day trade, half the day is a long-term trend. And when that breaks, just take your one little bit of a snipe. So that'll be the plan for silver today, which will require some patience because it did nothing effectively, or not much, for the first half of the day. But when it started to go, it was worth it, no questions asked. So just be patient. Volatility is here to stay with the metals. It just doesn't always happen at 9:30. Gentlemen.
Building, we're going to touch on some gold opportunities here. You and I were just combing over some more software-related charts. You mentioned this one, CRMs. I mean, this is a daily chart. We're down here this morning. So, I mean, well off all-time highs. Gave up $200 yesterday. Didn't even try.
Their pitch was, look, you don't want to keep sensitive client data in the cloud, where it can get compromised. You want to keep it locally, and that's what whole agent force was supposed to be, right? Yeah. And that is kind of being done right now by what we're seeing with Lisa Su. I'm not just saying AMD's the only one, but you're able to keep it locally on your server. You don't need their products. In addition to that, their regular client relations management software by internal designs through vibe coding and everything else like that. So these software names that don't have a defensible moat that can just be replicated through vibe coding, we're going to probably see more pain.
The really interesting and potentially dangerous part to this is not only is it a customizable, and instead of just taking something off the shelf and trying to form fit your business into what the software does, you can further customize something exactly what you need versus just a generic product, which is I think the really tough part for some of these. ServiceNow still going downside here. Heavy volume coming into play as we got through. This is a daily chart again. We got through that 140, 135 area. So Yeah, a tough world right now, I think, guys, for software companies. Gold, as we mentioned, back to the upside. We're going to talk to Raheem, just getting set up here.
You know, one of the good things that you could say about ServiceNow in particular is a quote that Luca used to always say. This one, and it holds up. If it doesn't break the low, there's only one place to go. And sometimes when you gap down and don't make a fresh low, there's actually a bit of a relief rally. So maybe ServiceNow has one of those in it if you're looking at some of these names. But just like when we're watching CRM, right? And I know that's still on PayPal. Just like when we were watching CRM, like you're at the point with these software names where you're going so far back in terms of time frame. And I say this every single time I'm looking at a monthly or weekly chart, but if you're starting to look for places of support or dip buy zones or whatever it might be on a higher time frame, then you need to have your execution or trade or plan be on that higher time frame too. Because the next support on ServiceNow that is effectively like here at about 105 to 110 bucks, well, that's a 3-month bottom that it put in when it was here. Like it just sat there in that range for 3 months and then broke out. And if you go lower, it sat down here for like half a year or more than half a year down in the 80s. So even if you get to those levels, you don't always expect that you're going to get a quick little snap back. So I think there's a lot of weakness when you're looking at the higher time frame on some of these. Sentiment is pretty obvious. Just be very patient. If you're in the super dip buy mode and you're like, but I think this is overdone. CRM's going to bounce. ServiceNow's going to bounce. Just understand on these time frames, you're going to pay a price sometimes for being a little bit too early, and sometimes it just might be a lot of sideways action. You should be ready for it. We got some action up at the desk. I see a very well-dressed gentleman who is ready to talk probably a little bit about some metals, my guess.
Yeah, the story doesn't end here with some of these metals. Great to have Raheem back in the building after a week on the West Coast. Was it West Coast? Just West Coast? Yeah.
It was good. It was a good barometer for where the metals market's going. It's a kind of a precursor for the conference circuit regarding mining.
Right.
And positive optimism that was there. You could just feel the buzz. There were people lined up to talk to companies, and we haven't seen that in quite a long time, where companies were around off camera that there was swag, and we haven't seen swag at a mining conference in a long time, because you got to save all that money to put holes in the ground. Time we saw people, with just a positive enthusiasm around mining, and it didn't hurt the fact that gold went to and silver went to and copper went to, not before seeing levels all that week. And so this week's obviously been different.
And you make a good point in that this is all happening, not necessarily just one or the other. Here is gold futures right now, back to the upside. This is a daily chart once again. So we're back above 5,000. Do we hold?
Yeah.
Remains to be seen, obviously. But
after doomsday, we've gone below 5,000. It's all over.
It's over.
The party's over.
Throw in the towel.
You remember just a couple of months back, we were at 3,000. So just,
Context. Context around here. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to start maybe dipping a toe back in if they did take some profit on that huge, huge down move. I guess the question becomes then, where and how and when, and are you seeing something specifically in a certain area that's showing relative strength maybe versus anything else?
Well, I think what we've talked about here many times is go, then the juniors start to go, and consolidation, M&A opportunities. That's where I think that's where you're going to see the movement in some of the mid-tier, smaller tier juniors. That's where you get that real price delta of 50s, 100s, 200%. You see those happening when there are M&A opportunities. We're getting now into that next phase. Okay, gold's gone. Producers have all run up. Agnico's sitting back over $200 when they were at $100 ago. And so you're seeing things like that happen. And now you're seeing these majors now either investing into juniors or consolidation occurring. And so we're seeing consolidation occurring as we speak. But what we've also said is that the premiums aren't like they were a dozen years ago when you were getting, 50, 100, 200% day VWAP. We're seeing more reasonable premiums in the 5, 10, 15, 20%.
Interesting. Even with all-time highs.
Yes.
And haven't seen. Maybe the best indicator to look at is who are the companies spending the most on the swag, and has
Swag to
a swag
stock
indicator
price performance ratio.
There you go.
You should walk around and be like, where was this hat manufactured? I don't really care about your mining. I just want to know, where did you get the hat?
who is serving the top shelf at the bar.
Yes, you should walk around and be like, were you serving Casamigos? Or he's like, what were you serving? I just want to know, get a lay of the land for
By
your
that
budget.
stock. So let's run through a few here that we'll talk a little bit about the relationship maybe between the price and what has happened in gold. I mean, I looked at before we jumped on here, didn't really have the same reaction to gold as the underlying. Again, that's the futures. So just to remind everyone, the huge move down off the highs. But if we go to a BTO, for example, yes, it came in, but I mean, it was nowhere near the percentage comparison.
No. And you look at something like a BTO, at the beginning of the year it was 350, got up to 830, which is a fantastic run in a mid-cap name, and then pulls back to 680, right? So it didn't have as high a rip up, and it didn't have as precipitous a downfall. A name like that, it was one of the more active names yesterday, so I just mentioned that. Maybe it's because it's in West Africa, so it's more insulated. There wasn't any real news as to why BT Gold would be as insulated against the drop off again, sorry for using the quotes, but the drop off on gold that we've seen in some other names. But it was a little bit more cautious on that one. That one's got its results coming out in 2 weeks, so if you are really keen and want to do some homework, then tune into that call and see what the company's up to.
One of the interesting things with this type of play and this type of sector is, unlike tech, for example, where it's very, very concentrated on one or maybe two names. You see in gold and mining and other metals more of a spread out approach when people start getting back in.
Yeah, and again, I think there's a two-pronged approach. You look at the producers. You'll take your first swath is kind of 1A, the majors. 1B will be kind of the Canadian majors, and then part 2 will be the mid-tier producers. Part 3 will then go into the producers that have more development than they do production. Flows that way generally is how it works in mining. So you'll see it way more spread out than you would in, like you said, in tech.
Agnico Eagle, as you were alluding to, one of those ones that came in through a significant level, $200, right back above today.
Yeah, it got up to a high of 225. And again, you look at a major like Agnico, you don't expect the ability to make 100%. You don't expect to get a double on a name like Agnico. So that went from 92 to 225. It's crossed back over that $200 level. But again, a name like Agnico, they're sitting on so much cash simply because the price of gold's gone up. They're producing, so there's just more balance sheet strength, and they're putting that balance sheet strength to use. So they invested into a number of names, a couple of names that we'll be talking about here. They've put money out into, as an example, Osisko Metals is my son's favorite stock. He loves that stock. So Osisko, they put in more money into that at 48 cents. That stock's sitting at $1.10. So it just keeps going. A name like Foran Mining, they put in additional financings into a name like Foran. Foran just got taken out, I think it was on Monday. So you're seeing these names, these large companies are now saying we have so much cash, let's put them into some of these mid-tier names, and now we're seeing those mid-tier names now get taken out.
And getting bought up, yeah. Okay, Eldorado. We've spoken about this one, EGO. We've spoken about this one before, but this one may be a little bit more volatile than the rest, or the others we've spoken about.
Yeah, Eldorado, ELD.
ELD.
Yeah, Eldorado has seen some volatility. But it's got up to a high of 69. It has trailed off back down to 54. But they just did this deal with Foran. So Eldorado's, they've got some assets in Canada, but more European focused with Turkey and Greece. Picking up this asset in Foran here in Canada. So it's I believe it was 0.1128 shares of Eldorado per share of Foran that you're going to get in that transaction. Foran heavily weighted in Canada. So now it's giving them more of a footprint here in Canada to combine with the European assets.
You mentioned everything else not necessarily going in the same velocity, but copper is one thing we talked about from the beginning of the year as maybe having a great potential throughout the remainder of 2026 as well. Is there a specific type or a specific area of that group that's performing well right now in copper?
Copper. Because copper is not a storage of value, again, if you look at gold and you look at central banks buying gold, and then you want to get into theories around US dollar and crypto and gold and where people are taking storage of value, you've got the theory around silver as being actual practical use. And then C, you've got copper. No one really buys copper as a storage of value. People are buying copper because they're going to need it in essentially everything that's everywhere. You're going to need copper. So you're seeing people look more at copper because of the fact that and there's not enough copper to fill the needs of what the world currently needs.
Yeah, one on the smaller end of the market cap scale here in Toronto on the CSE, CUPR. I mean, talk about a double. This was almost a triple, and we're giving some back below $1 here.
Yeah, back over $1 again, and got up to $1.36 last week. Again, Super Copper would indicate that they are a copper company, but they actually have gold showings, and that's why we thought we'd talk about them today. They did a sampling at their site, just a very high-level sampling, and they picked up 58 grams per ton gold. And if they hit 58 grams per ton gold, it's game on for them. But in reality, there is a high. That's a very high number versus the ones and twos that you get in other parts of the world. So 58 grams per ton is phenomenal. They also had some good grades on copper, so they're going to get to work on that asset. But that's just one of those junior names that might get interesting down the road because of the fact that it's in Chile. It's a good region for copper and for gold. So the stock did run up from 22 cents. It hit $1.30, I believe, trailed back to $1 at this point.
This might be an entire segment on its own, but one way you can look at gold as well is through royalties. And we hear a lot through advertising about these royalty companies, SUM. I mean, let's set aside the mechanics of it for now. Maybe we'll dig into it, on a later date. But just from a high level, what's the difference really that people need to understand?
So a royalty, if you're looking at it from from our audience's point of view, a royalty is a way to essentially buy the recurring revenue from a company. So let's just say you want to look at it as Tesla.
Right.
You want to buy Tesla's sales channel. So you know that Tesla's going to sell. You're buying a piece of that sales channel. You may not get the upside on Tesla just found this amazing technology that's going to revolutionize the world and the stock goes up on the back of that. You won't get that upside, but you know that you're going to get a piece of Tesla's continuing sales as you go. So what a group like Summit, and there's a lot of royalty plays, if you're looking at more cash flow certainty, what they'll go and do is they'll buy a pool, either single name or a pool of streams. So one company might say, okay, I'm going to give you 1% of my sales, of my gold sales next year for the next 50 years, as an example, in exchange for a sum of money today. So instead of doing a dilutive financing, I'll promise you a percentage of future sales is the way the mechanism generally works around royalties. And so Summit, good team. They just went public a few weeks back, end of November. Stock's done relatively well. It's starting to trend up on the back of the fact that they've got a good pool of royalties. Because you can also buy a not so good pool of royalties because something that may never come to production and the money you're just flushing it down the toilet. These guys bought some off of IM Gold, who's a well-known entity. So you pick up 2, 3, 4, 5 assets, say I want to buy that percentage of sales off of them for the next 20 years in exchange for a sum of cash.
The narrative continues to be upside even with the pullback. I mean, during that dip, everyone was saying, hold on, wait a minute, was that it?
Yeah.
We get 2 green days here back to the 6,000, 6,500, 8,000.
I heard somebody say yesterday, based on what we're seeing here, 10,000 is the next number.
Right.
Yeah, sure. It could be.
Yeah. Obviously, no way of predicting, but it's interesting from a higher standpoint, how the narrative changes so quickly and understanding, I guess, where we are at any.
And I think I spoke about this many months ago here on the network, is that doubling period, the 1,000 period to go from 0 to 1,000. 1,000 to 2,000 was this much. 2,000 to 3,000 was only supposed to be this much. 3,000 to 4,000, and the time periods have shrunk so rapidly that it's going from 2 to 4, now going from 5 to 10.
Why not?
Why not?
Go for it. We'll talk. That's Rahim Alani, always great stuff. Managing Director over at OCI Group. Good to see you.
Enjoy Super Bowl, everybody, and Kushali Mubarak to those that are celebrating today.
Rahim, you got a dog in the race here on the Super Bowl. I think Seattle could walk away with it.
I think it's got to be Seattle. Like both teams, so I think it's a war of attrition, and I dislike Seattle less than I dislike New England.
Okay.
So I think it's got to be Seattle. I actually was sitting with a gentleman He owns a mining company. I just randomly was sitting next to him. He's living in Washington State. His wife and Seahawks fans, but he grew up in Boston. And so I was sitting with a Pats fan at a bar, which was deeply disturbing.
Right.
But I got the worst game of football ever played. And then you've got this poor guy who wants to cheer so hard for the Patriots, and then his whole family. You couldn't even have predicted that would ever happen.
No.
No, nobody had this Super Bowl to begin with.
Last year, Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts or whatever. Remember? I think the last year.
Yeah, but he ended the year trash, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I know.
The last 2 games were terrible.
The last time he played the Rams in 2 years ago playoff, he got.
It was ridiculous.
And then he had a great,
more power
great
to
year. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But I have to give
from a Ravens fan, of course.
No, but I have to give a. The one thing people are not talking about enough in the NFL is there is a quarterback this year who's done something so historic that no quarterback has ever been able to in the history of the National Football League.
Yeah, Shedeur Sanders.
And that is leave your team, have the team that you left because you didn't want to sign a contract, go to the Super Bowl. You went to is picking #1 overall. So shout out to you, Geno Smith. No quarterback has ever done that in the history of the game.
And Sam Darnold round pick, and now starting in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, fifth overall there, Sam Darnold, taken higher than, I think he was in the same draft as Lamar, wasn't he, maybe? Yeah, and Josh. So,
that was a crazy.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that Sam Darnold's going to win a Super Bowl ahead of all of those other quarterbacks?
Poor Josh Allen.
Poor Josh.
I think Josh Rosen is actually in investing, believe it or not.
Yeah, Josh Rosen. Yeah, he was a high pick.
I think he went back to
he was like number
like
9
an NBA or something.
Got drafted by Miami.
Rosen was Zona, wasn't he?
I think he was Miami.
Actually, well, he's played on every team, so he played on like 5 teams.
We know the stream is lagging and looping, and our audio is all do. So I would say log out and back in and see if that will help.
It hasn't done. I tried it. It hasn't done much. Oh, just going back to gold, because one thing we talked about, well, we haven't shown you. We've talked plenty about gold. One thing we haven't actually shown is to be able to look back at the crazy bull runs that since 1970 that it's been on. And you've had, like here, this was one of those longer pullbacks that I was mentioning, and it's hard to see because this is one from 190 down into 100, pretty hefty. And then you had this drawdown here, which lasted several months as well before you caught a little bit of a bizzle straight down for 3 months before you caught a little bit of support. And if you look at the most recent, not this current one, but the most recent rally, from the 2000s, this started in about in 2002, and really you have just a couple of 1 month, more like 1 month events, and then maybe 2 or 3 months to get back into the highs. We haven't had, if you look at this monthly chart, we haven't even had, this is a 3 month chart, so you really, if you're seeing one red, that's almost a full quarter, and we haven't had one of those just yet. If I go back over and only look at the monthly chart, you begin to see a picture of just how different this has been. So we're still looking for that first red month, which would be healthy in gold and silver to actually have a full month red, and it wouldn't be crazy in this kind of a bull run. Historically, we've had 3 months be red as well. So buckle up, because we know volatility is going to be here. But the numbers like 10,000 and whatnot, it wouldn't surprise me if we get to some point and we go sideways for 2-3 months. I think I'll actually look at that and get a little bit of excited, because I think that would be a very healthy place to look for a dip buy. But it's going to require some patience, as crazy as it's been. We're almost at 9 o'clock, everybody. So some people saying in the chat that the reboot has fixed the issue for them. So hopefully that's true. That would be absolutely great. So we can get back to our regular scheduled programming. We're going to go through the rundown, the free watch list, basically everything that you guys want. But just one note on Uber, because I know we were talking about the bounce back in Uber, and I know that Goldman Sachs reiterated, and there's some positive notes from them. But the CEO was talking during the entirety of this run to the upside, and what was said on the call. I had one note that I saw here that I can read for you guys on the call. And it was simply, here, Uber CEO says seeing AVS on platform at significantly higher utilization than standalone platforms. Margins very similar to other products. And again, this is just the case of sometimes you get beaten up, but that conference call starts, and we've seen it a lot with the banks, and you have maybe a calm voice out there, which is reassuring the stock, and that's what the markets sometimes just want to hear. So for now, Uber is right back above support on the strength of the conference call more than anything else. And it's been doing this while the market's been heading down. So it's not even like the market's been bouncing here this morning to carry Uber up. You got the ES, which is slowly sliding toward flat, and the Nasdaq, which is slightly down. And Uber was bouncing on the call in spite of all of that, guys.
All right. Yeah, I was going to say that's an awesome move for Uber. I was about to put it on the watch list here, but I like looking at Oracle here maybe today, and I saw Joe had them on the downgrade side of things. We're starting to head a little south in the market, and Oracle's kind of holding up right now. So we're going to have a look to see if Oracle has any news other than that downside downgrade, and we'll figure for a short coming potentially in Oracle today, as this stock has just been pretty beat up. It's going to be a time where you're going to sit there and want to buy Microsoft and Oracle and some of these beat up names that have produced so well for so long. Microsoft trying to find a bid right now. And again, just to reiterate, man, like if there is a problem, just please try to refresh and bear with us, as we're trying to do things the same every day. Yeah. And sometimes there is a YouTube issue there. Maybe our internet has. Maybe Randy tariffs our coffee sometimes. I don't know if he's tariffing bandwidth here or not, but shout out to Randy. Okay, let's go back over the desk. 8:56. The watch list to go through as well. Make sure you do check it all out, and we're getting ready to rock and roll. About a half hour before this market opens.
Checking on some of the yields back to the upside a little bit here this morning. Dollar back downside. PayPal also, yeah. No love at all for PayPal here this morning. We're starting to roll over. I saw a couple of people mentioning this. Starting to roll over again after what happened yesterday. There was just no bid on this stock. It was almost like there was just no participation. Yeah. It didn't really just fall off a cliff, but it didn't really go up. It just kind of chopped around doing nothing.
This is the kind of same story we've been talking about, I think, for a better part of a year and a half now. Remember when we talked about Apple putting the Apple Pay at checkout on a lot of these websites, and they had that tie-up with Shopify. They already had the tie-up with Amazon. What benefit are we really going to get from PayPal other than the Cash App and some of the other, auxiliary stuff that they have? Their main issue is being disrupted. The only thing they really had going for them was like the 400 or 500 million active users that they had, which you could theoretically monetize. But what's the point in creating a PayPal account, paying through PayPal when I can just do it through Apple or Google Pay, in your case, of course, right? Yeah. So, I just don't see the upside here unless they can innovate something different.
I echo that. It's a really, really challenging time here. But speaking of, Google trying to get higher right now. Definitely higher than where we ended the day yesterday. Bit of a pullback for Alphabet. Heading into what will be an important report tonight. You and I were just kind of talking about the advertising comparison side of the revenue specifically. Yep. We'll get into this on the rundown a little bit more in depth. But just going back to Meta specifically, you mentioned 90%. I think it was 90+% of their revenue. And Google not quite that high, but still. That's going to be the key, I think, tonight.
A lot of us, like when we talk about Google, we talk about every cookie jar that they have their hand in, whether it's the goodness, there's just so many. But when you look at where the revenue is coming from, Brendo, not so many. 70 Google's revenue comes from advertising. So whether or not, they've got a whole bunch of diversified moats, we always call them, we jokingly ETF encompassed within a company, 75% of the revenue comes from one source and one source only. So ripe for disruption, but so far, not even close.
Yeah, they're the king in search still. All right, let's have a look at the market here, and then we'll get into some more earnings from last night.
We lost 690, guys, yesterday. 689.5 is where we closed out on the SPY. We're just a fraction above 690 right now, 690.20. So here's the deal. Yesterday's area where we closed out on the 4-hour chart, we're looking at 687 as our area of support. If we start trending down again, if we start moving up, we're looking at that 693 area. We had a lot of interactions with that 693 area over the past couple of days.
All right, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you grab this. Absolutely free every single day. Description below has the link, top link in the description. We'll get you to the sign up page for the watch list. has everything written up nicely. Each morning comes right to your inbox, everything that's moving around in the pre-market, including AMD this morning, the big one after the close yesterday. We brought it to you as it came out at 4:15 last night. Initial move was higher, and then we got a quick reversal here. It is starting to bounce, but I mean, we were just at session lows a couple minutes ago here for AMD. The forecast, everything else, actually not bad.
Pretty good. This one could be SSR. I saw it briefly down below 10%. Obviously, we have to ring the bell for that to happen. Let's talk about how they did on earnings, guys. EPS well ahead of the street estimate of $1.32, coming in at $1.53 a share, with revenue exceeding $10 billion, $10.27 billion, topping expectations. However, investors focused on the first quarter guidance that didn't fully live up to the elevated expectation. Now, when you look at the LSEG consensus, they beat above that. But what some are really looking for is more bullish modeling. So Q1 guiding for revenue, 9.8 plus or minus 300 million. That's technically above the 9.38 expected by the LSEG consensus, but again, below some more bullish guides there. Market reaction suggests, the market wanted clearer upside, leverage from the AI CapEx cycle, especially given Nvidia's dominance. Their data center revenue, which we always say is a euphemism for AI, reached $5.4 billion in revenue on the quarter, up 39% year over year. Importantly here, Lisa Su emphasized that AI demand is lifting server sales as well for CPUs, not just for GPUs. So that's something obviously AMD focuses on. Client and gaming revenue, which had been kind of a laggard of the last few years as people really focused more on AI, and the PC upgrade cycle had been kind of weak, surged 37% year over year, up almost to $4 billion.
We've had this huge bounce or rally, I guess, on the Gemini side, specifically over to Gemini on this last model, but that seems to have quieted down a little bit. I've actually been hearing more and more people talking about Claude,
yes,
and Anthropic, and it's a constant back and forth. This portion of the show brought to you by our friends at Spot Gamma. We've all bought the dip, convinced we found a safe entry, only to be hit with painful losses. But what if you could see where pressure was building, somewhere most traders never look? In the options market. Join Spot Gamma Wednesday, February 11th at 1 p.m. for their live webinar, Volume Triggers, the #1 crash indicator. You'll discover how to apply options-driven signals to see when the bottom can fall out. Inside, every equities, options, and futures trader can use to generate an edge and avoid losses. Scan the QR code to reserve your seat and start putting Spot Gamma's top early warning alerts to work for you. Guys, lots to consider coming up with Google tonight. We'll get to that in a sec. Thoughts on AMD here today?
Just quickly before thoughts on AMD, HIMS has popped a couple of bucks here, launching a multi-cancer early detection testing, connecting customers to what they say is cutting-edge proactive care. So if you're watching or you have your scanners up, there is a headline for HIMS there. So looking pretty good for them. And on the AMD note, not looking as bad as it did earlier. So you're getting, it's not an Uber-like bounce, obviously, but it is at least trying to get back into the volume-weighted average price. Now, when we looked at this last night, one of the things that I think was a common refrain was, if we lose 230, you really need to hold on to, it's about 222 as a 50-period moving average, and we're underneath that. And the prior support here, or sorry, resistance here would be like 225. So that theoretical area of would have been support at 222 to 25 has been breached. So even with this bounce, like to me, you have a sell zone in here on AMD, which is still going to be in play. It'll only be uptick rule in effect on this stock, as Sharif mentioned, if it gets to 10% down in the open market. So right now it's not SSR, but I think that 222 to 225 band is where I'd be looking. What I actually find interesting is, well, it's flat now and moving down with the market, but Intel's giving us, just in another wave, Intel, despite AMD being bad, is actually giving you another shot at the 50 level, because it's been failing the 50 almost every time we get up there, whether it's on strength and failing in front of 50, or whether it's failing the breakout at the open, and we get another crack at this one today, and not necessarily helped by AMD, but if we push up, I just want to see us fail breakout over 50, even to short this one again. But AMD is going to have to wait till it gets to 222 to 225 for a bit of a fade zone.
Excuse me. Yeah, I was just looking at AMD as well, obviously, as we're discussing it. And I'm not sure this is going to be like a tank moment here, because it's already down 9%, right? Like, we had that report yesterday live, obviously, here at Trader TV, and make sure you do join us. I have to take a sip of water here. Something going on there. You know, you guys joined us. We saw that numbers came through. Obviously, we've broken through many different areas. But I sort of did the roller coaster thing earlier with AMD, and I mean, that's pretty much, you know, like, we've been down here before, bumped up 10%, back down 10%, back up 10%, back down 10%, up 30%, or 25%, and then now back down that 25% again. Like, this has had many swings since November. And if you even go back, you know, all the way back here until October, AMD just really can't find its footing on what it wants to do, right? But at the end of the day, you know, this is a big area right into here that we've really just supported for a while. So this earnings is just kind of trying to bring it back in just a little bit lower into an area that we've seen before. So I let it go to the downside, but this is probably a buy down here, you know, $200, and you wait to see if we can make that move higher. So that's something that I'm looking at here for AMD. See if I can, I don't even know how to delete that thing now. So as far as a day trade is concerned, like what we're looking for today, yeah, Neil's, you know, we can never know what exact areas to short, but your 200 period moving average, by the time we, you know, open up a little bit, this will be down into this 224, 223 area. Forget about all these dark pools there. Not worried about some of those heights. But, you know, whenever there's a gap, we say play it to VWAP. So right now, for me, the early look is at 220 to 221. So we'll wait to see how this stock opens up. I mean, it's moved, you know, $5, $10 off open on non-earnings days. Looks like it is going to touch out at SSR. SSR is only going to hit once the market's open, so it was already SSR, but, you know, it's not going to register until this market opens, and that clicks down 10%. So as soon as that winds up happening, it'll be unable to hit the bid. So the only people that will be able to sell this stock will be traders that have inventory, so they're already long. You know, I mean, there's ways to financial engineer, but let's just think about that. So the only way to get into short would be to sell off the ask. So that could create a little bit of a bump once that does happen. So I'm actually going to wait for it to go down 10%, maybe bump up 1 or 2% or something on that, watch the tape, and then hit the fade on that move. So now you're getting 5 or 6 straight downside candles here. Let's see what winds up happening with Advanced Micro Devices today when it gets to that 10%. And fade it at VWAP if you're looking for something to do. But I'd get out, and then if that doesn't work, yeah, then 222 and a little higher for Advanced Micro Devices. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be another one of those names where, hey, we know AI is hot, but we continue to see downside pressure. We got a downside play from Intel. Now we're getting it from AMD. We're going to talk about SMCI next, which is a nice story, hopefully. And then Nvidia, here goes AMD right now. Looks like it wants to crack lower. And then Nvidia coming at the end of February. So we have a little while before this all happens for the king. But, you know, just to see what they're doing today, they were down 2% or so early, I thought. No, not even. So down about 0.5% right now. We'll see if Nvidia loses the bid here at 179.50. So another possibility there for Nvidia and AMD. But yeah, I don't think the sky's necessarily falling on all these names. AMD has the pedigree to make these 10% moves, and they're just doing it again on an earnings day. So stay sort of prudent on your longs, and make sure you get out if it breaks day's low. So that's it for AMD.
Andre, just give me a heads up when you have that available. Okay. Going to be a couple of minutes, guys, but we are having an issue with the stream settings. So what we're going to do is create a new stream. And we're going to move everyone over to anything, but that will, we're confident anyways, that will resolve the lag issue that we've been dealing with this morning. So just stand by. We thank you for your patience, obviously. With this, we're just working on creating the new stream in the background. Once it's ready, we're going to move everyone over to it, and that should resolve the issue, hopefully. So let's higher this morning. We sat around here until 4:30 last night. This was scheduled to come out at 4:05. Didn't come out at 4:05. Didn't come out at 4:15. We got AMD, and then we sat here until 4:30. Still wasn't out. I mean, it's their history. They tend to report whenever they feel like it.
Exactly. Charles Liang, get it together. This was a good report, Brendo, and it was the first clean beat in a while. Let's talk about it. Adjusted EPS coming in well consensus estimate of 69 pennies, coming in at 49 on revenue of $12.7 billion. That top line number, guys, is 123% year-over-year increase, well above the 10.4 billion. 12.7. She was looking for 10.4. That's an easy beat there. The stock, though, has fallen 29% over the past 3 months, so a bit of a tougher look locally. Guiding here, let's talk about the guidance. 60 pennies EPS on revenue of $12.3 billion. That's for the current quarter. That tops Wall Street's estimate of 46 pennies on 11.3 billion, so guiding $1 billion above estimates. Fantastic there. This is viewed by analysts as a clear signal that the AI infrastructure demand remains resilient. KeyBank also chiming in, saying, look, this is the first clean beat in over a year, and this reinforces hyperscaler demand. But that's where the end of the good news is. Now let's talk about the gross margins, because they're compressing markedly. Last year on the quarter, 11.8% gross margins. That's down to 6.3%. And it's really driven by a customer mix. They're blaming it on tariffs. They're blaming it on shortages in components like memory. And we've seen memory skyrocket in price. That's obviously going to eat into their margins. So we'll have to see how they do. But they're still not sound technically, Brendo. When you look at the wider time frame, they haven't recovered.
That's exactly what I was just doing, trying to get some gauge of where we're at. That's a weekly chart right now for SMCI. So yeah, we're up nicely here, guys. But I mean, if you zoom out, you get a better perspective here today.
Okay, yeah, I know it looks bad when you zoom out, but if you zoom in a little bit more, which you always should start by looking at the higher time frame to get a sense of it, this is something that seems like it's got a chance. It'll be much more exciting if we break 34. I don't know if I wrote down the exact level, not even sure. It probably doesn't matter. I think it's like 33.65 or somewhere around that range, this local top. But you're a good $1.50 away from breaking out this level on the daily chart. The hold of the 50 period today is at least what gets exciting here. When you beat top bottom and the guidance is good, and then you show some signs of weakness elsewhere throughout its cohorts, there is room for this to at least do something good. Now the problem here is it's underneath VWAP, market's trending down, it's trending down like it wants to fill in the gap. So it didn't end up making my list because the dip buys don't look nearly as, I thought I drew these and kept them, I guess I didn't. The dip buys don't look nearly as attractive. Like the zone I'm looking at is break down into here and don't come out the bottom end. Well, it's a dollar zone, which requires a ton of patience because it's 3% on SMCI, and you want to be holding on to the bottom of the range, which means I don't think I would want to buy it through that top. If this isn't above 33, working into this local breakout, then I'd probably I could end up sitting this out all day if it ends up inside. But if you look at it if you look at it on the daily chart, simply holding this level for the next 2 or 3 days gives you a possible swing entry. So I think in that regard, it does look like there's something there. Just for the day trade, it would require a dip that I don't think you want to see if you're looking for early longs, for me to want to be involved in this. But you know what? This had the potential to be ugly, and it's really not. Again, like this was strong, and the guidance was also very strong here, and they've gotten cheap. Like you're now talking about a tech company underneath 20 PE after the beat yesterday.
Yeah, I like the dip by long as well. We've seen stocks getting hit, on good reports. So this is going to be, as Sharif said, a really great one. We don't have to go over the numbers again, but it's just trending higher here this morning. And we've seen names like Palantir yesterday, was just like this, man. It gapped higher. It did this little dance. It was down, then it was back up, and everyone was like, it's breaking higher, and then all of a sudden, whoosh. Yesterday, I'm just going to use Palantir as an example for what I expect SMCI to do today, right? And so it almost looks exactly like this. Like if you get away all of this stuff right here, so see you later, this is what SMCI looks like right now. And then the market opened, and this is what happened to Palantir, and then it found a base and ripped off of that. So let's just go back quickly to show you. So remember, this is what Palantir looked like. There's the gap, here's the hold. It's trying to figure out what it wants to do in the morning. So now let's go over to SMCI and just have a quick look over here again, and then we'll just see what that looks like right here. So here's the gap. Here's the hold, trying to figure out what it wants to do. Watch out for it losing the pre-market low back in here. And obviously it's not going to dip Well, it might go as violent as Palantir. I'm not sure, but if it does come in, I always look at the first to 200 period moving average, but I think we can almost go a little lower to that and go to 31 right around here and see where yesterday's sort of topping action kind of was. Actually, it's not even yesterday, this is 2 days ago. So $31 would be a spot for me to think about, okay, you know, we've had a good report. If we come in, look at that week high again and see if we can hold. So 31 is the marker for me on SMCI, and I think it's you know, that's a falling knife that I think is worth a little look if it does come back in and give it about 50 cents. SMCI obviously has a pedigree to move 10%, no problem, just like AMD. So yeah, great job there. I like the PE talk that Neil mentioned there about SMCI, and that is looking a little more attractive in this space. And remember, a better, you know, maybe a more financially stable name, Dell, also getting upticked today as well. So if you did prefer, you know, you like the server side, Dell could be one of those names that, you know, does get a little bit of love here on an SMCI. Good report. So, all right, Uber got ugly, and then all of a sudden it looks pretty good. So let's go find out what's going on with Uber here today, as it's pretty flat here in the pre-market, but it did have a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, wild range here. A huge move down to $70. We bounced off 70 on the nose almost, right back up $8 plus here. JP Morgan comes out, reiterates their overweight rating on Uber, saying all is well. Disregard. I mean, it was the forecast that was a little bit light. They also announced a new CFO, which was kind of interesting, who historically has been very, very bullish on autonomous driving. So maybe a directional move here.
Which you took the words out of my mouth there. It was good that they mentioned AV on the call right now, because that's what everybody's gauging disruption, their model at the moment. Let's talk about the numbers, and we'll get to the autonomous vehicles in a second. Q4 revenue, 14.37, edging past expectations of 14.32, and a nice increase year over year, up from $12 billion a year ago. Adjusted EPS coming in at 71 pennies, beating the top line as well. Let's talk about their different segments. Mobility, which is, you know, your regular ride hailing. That was $8.2 billion top line number, growing at 19% year over year. Delivery revenue growing a lot faster, 30% year over year, despite the fact that it's bringing in less money, $4.9 billion. That beats estimates. But the growth here in the delivery revenue was kind of because they expanded beyond restaurants. They're getting into groceries, they're getting into retail, so you can basically have anything delivered right now through Uber Eats. Let's talk about their net income, because that dropped sharply. They took home $296 million in profit on the quarter. Compare that to the $6.88 billion that they brought in last year on the quarter. They're trying to blame it on a $1.6 billion pre-tax headwind. But that math doesn't jive. $6.88 billion in profit last quarter, $296 million in profit this quarter, and a $1.6 billion pre-tax headwind. So clearly there was something afoot there. Now when we're talking about autonomous vehicles, CEO Dara Khosrowshahi, I don't know how to say his name, reiterated confidence that autonomous vehicles represent the multi-trillion-dollar opportunity that everybody's making out to be. And they say they got pilot projects, Brendo, in Atlanta and Austin, and they expect to facilitate AV trips in 15 U.S. cities by the end of this year.
So clearly a purposeful directional move here for Uber. We did get green on the morning, not at the moment currently, guys, but holding these aftermarket levels nicely for Uber. Interesting look here today.
Yeah, yesterday's consolidation levels getting held. I mean, sometimes you get these like one-off line items. That's an extreme one affecting that EPS. But you also look at what's been happening for Uber going into this print. It has been downward trending for quite some time, and it's just yet to find a bottom. So until we start holding prior support levels, and we could today, again, if this ends up holding 78, I have no issues being on the other side of the trade. But unfortunately, it still has the look of a flat bottom break. We didn't hold the gains above this 78 level where we closed. So unless we do on the 15-minute, then I got to start. I'm gonna be looking for at least somewhat of a fill in this gap in here to 75. But it's going to be all about the 78 level for me so far on Uber. And when we look at the long term, because actually this is a stock that I think what they have going for them is being embedded basically everywhere in the world. And when you've got that certainty and you want to push automation, you've got that certainty that you already have a bunch of people using the app that are embedded in the system, and there'd be less of a barrier for people to just hail a driverless ride if they already have the Uber app. So there's a dynamic that I think can still work for them. It's just all of this turmoil and the downward trend hasn't been broken yet. So you're careful dip buying, which means wait until at least we've settled after the earnings. But it is that 78 level. On the 15-minute, if we're closing above it, then I don't think I want to be shorting this stock here today. That's a heck of a V-shaped recovery already. We've seen this before. Usually I'm used to seeing this kind of a setup when they sell off the banks in the morning and then everyone comes to their senses. It's healthy to see it happen in Uber, but it might kibosh the trade.
Yeah, I'm just gonna try to use VWAP here. I mean, VWAP's been pretty good so far. So if you're gonna look at Uber here today, I feel like there is something going on there. Yeah, we just see a major pop there in USAR. Just heard it in our ear a little bit as well there, and someone on the chat mentioned, okay. Yeah, we'll get to that. Obviously, I saw MP Metals as well, USAR and Uber, so because similar symbols there. But yeah, I think it's just a drop down into VWAP here. I think Uber is going to have. Someone said it in the chat there that they're having like a little bit of an identity crisis. Yeah, I think that's probably right. I mean, Uber's so huge as far as what they offer that I just think they need to settle down a little bit and figure out where exactly this robo-taxi news is taking a name like Uber. What about they still have Uber Freight, and there's a bunch of different things that Uber's running there, the Uber Eats side of things as well. And I think that there still is a story to be told about automation in Uber. I think it can actually wind up helping them to some extent. And it's going to suck obviously for drivers, but at some point, I think all this FSD and automation, everything hits Uber, and maybe they can make a deal with somebody where, I don't know, their logistics and their fleet, is either upgraded or somehow a beneficiary of all of this. I wanted to look at Lyft because I know Lyft does not have, that Uber Eats side of things and some of those other business segments like Uber does. And you could see Lyft is actually, I mean, they're both obviously way away from their high. Uber being about $100, Lyft being 25. But this has been hit down pretty good too, and now is underneath its 200 period moving average. So if you don't really like Uber that much, I don't think Lyft is any better. So I would think like an 18 short or something. If Uber really gets going, you could maybe look at a Lyft short in and around $17 to $18. So you're not too far away from that right now. Scratch the 17 mark, maybe 18 or so for Lyft. So watch out for that, and we'll see where it goes from here. But Lyft right now, nice little downside play. And Uber, I think, can catch a bid. I mean, obviously what they were talking about in the conference call there had spiked the stock a little bit. So we'll wait to see as news drops and as Uber potentially getting downgraded maybe tomorrow off that kind of report, but we're up today. And it's pretty rare to see a sort of a tech name like this be up after earnings to this cycle. So we'll see if Uber can hold the bid. Down to 75, I think we'll take a stab long.
One that is very, very strong this morning, but a little deceiving if you zoom out on Enphase as well. Yeah, we're up huge to 47, 48 bucks. Possible to come into play this morning on a better than expected report, but don't zoom out on a weekly chart because it looks very, very small in that case.
I remember this one during the COVID times.
Yeah.
Was it like $300, something
Crazy.
like that? It was a lot higher than where it is now. Look, it was a good quarter for them. Adjusted EPS coming in at 71 pennies. Easily beating the 54 expected by the street. That would be a 31.5% earnings surprise. And guys, over the last 4 quarters, they've beaten consensus EPS 3 times. How about the revenue? Well, they brought in $343.3 million. That tops estimates by 2.6%, but that declined markedly from the $382.7 million in revenue they brought in last year on the quarter. But revenue now has beaten consensus estimates 3 times in the past 4 quarters. Their shares are up a little bit less than 14% year to date, which is definitely outperforming the S&P. And their guidance, also good, Brendel, 39 pennies EPS on $259.9 million in revenue. That's for the next quarter. When it comes to EPS for the full year, they're looking at $2.06 on $1.18 billion in revenue. And estimate revisions have shifted meaningfully in recent weeks as, I guess, the solar landscape has changed. We saw today that Chinese solar EVs, Jinko Solar, JKS, if you guys want to look at that, up big because apparently Musk was going and visiting some of the production facilities in China there. I'm assuming, just an assumption, that he's kind of looking for suppliers for solar panel centers in space with the XAI and SpaceX.
I was having a conversation with one of my friends about that last night.
What did he say?
It was just, his mind was blown. He's a anyway. Okay, we've appreciate everyone's patience this morning, guys. We've had some technical issues with the stream itself. It's been the set stream in the background, so we apologize for the audio disruptions and the video lag. What we are going to do right now, if you want to show the screen here, go right to our YouTube. There's two that are live right now that are the same stream. What we're going to do is take the one we are in and put everyone into the other one that is also currently live right now. So if for whatever reason you do not end up in the new one on the main YouTube page, you don't have to do anything right now. If, again, something happens, you don't get redirected, that's where you'll find it. Otherwise, just stand by. I'm going to send everybody to the new stream. In the meantime, guys, let's talk SMCI for today.
It was, we did the SMCI, but yeah.